Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. So my guest today, a very special guest, is Larry Cordle. So welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
I know you're a busy guy. And I'm wondering what a perfect day off looks like for you these days.
Well, I don't really have one. Mike, we've got our grandkids a lot, which I love that. You know, they're our daughter works, so they're here 2 or 3 days a week with us, and one of them's 6 and the other one's 2. So we're enjoying that part of life. And hey, I tell you, the music business really never goes away. I mean, I've got stacked up on top of things stacked up to do. But when one of them rolls around and I got to get it done, then I get my rear end in gear and get to it.
Right. There recently was a celebration of Bill Monroe at the Opry. I think it was maybe a month or 2 ago that you were involved with. How did that come about, and what was your favorite part of that event?
Oh, man, I just loved all that stuff. I mean, me and Mr. Monroe were really pretty good friends. He played with us every Wednesday night when Glenn Duncan and I had the gig at the Bell Coves Club in Hendersonville. That was in the late 80s. And I wrote that song. Jim Rushing and I wrote a song called Kentucky King that was about Monroe. I mean, thank God we got it and got to do it, and everything while he was still here. And after that, I couldn't hardly really do any wrong for Mr. Monroe. He was pretty much, but he did so many great things for me. He got me on the Opry the first time I was on it, and for all of the things you hear about him, he had a really good side too that was visible if you was around him enough. He kind of was he was the king. I mean, what can I tell you? He really was. And I mean, I think everybody treated him that way for the most part. And I certainly did, because I can remember being a little kid in East Kentucky and listening to him my grandpa had an old truck that you didn't have to have a key in to turn the radio on. Oh man, I go out there on Saturday nights, when I was 5 or 6 years old, turn that radio on. That's who I was looking for. I was looking for him. Mm-hmm. The fact that I would meet him one day and become friends with him would have been the farthest thing from my mind. It was a great show. I wasn't involved actually in the show, but I was out there the whole evening, and it was they did a special thing for the station in conjunction with it. So I went as part of that contingent with the owner, Josh Ulbrich, and a bunch of the other staff at the station inn. I've been working there so many years, off and on for over 30 years, and they did a real nice thing for them. They made a cake for them. They made a big, had Josh actually introduce the Del McCurry Band, which was a great thing. And it was just a great show all night. I mean, we saw every act. It was a really fine show, and really a tribute to Mr. Monroe and the music he created, and to see how it progressed and went on,
It's funny, you kind of alluded to the fact that his reputation among people that didn't really know him was he's kind of an ornery guy, and all the people he didn't pay, and all the problems he had with band members and fights and this. But as you say, there was a side of him when you got to know him. If he liked you, you probably were his best pal and that you just saw a side nobody else might see?
Well, of course, I didn't see that side because I didn't work for him in that capacity. I wasn't a member of the Bluegrass Boys, only for one day once. But you know, we've all got things. I think myself, Mr. Monroe, I think he kind of mellowed as he got older. And he was still Bill Monroe, and he wanted you to know that. But I don't know. I hear other people too say things that he's done for them, or how he helped them in this way and that. I mean, the guy had a heart. He really did.
Yeah.
As he used to say, I've got a great big job, and I have to do it too, boy. I mean, that's how he looked at things. I mean, everything was his job.
Yeah.
It was. Everything was his job.
So, I know you grew up with music around you. I think you had a family band as a kid.
No, I did not.
No, you didn't. Didn't have a family band.
My great grandfather, who lived with us, was an old time clawhammer banjo player and a dancer. And he got these 3 fingers right here cut off in a railroad accident. So all he had was a thumb and a little finger on his right hand. So he figured out how to get his thumb and little finger around a frog. And he was kind of Sawyer of a fiddle player. And he was the real musician in my family. But all my family could play and sing, every one of them. And my mother and dad were in gospel groups and stuff. But when I was a great big boy, I wouldn't have nothing to do with that. That's too bad. I could have learned so much from them. My paternal grandfather actually taught singing schools and stuff. He was a fairly, I guess he was a really good singer. I never heard him sing anywhere but in church, but I guess he was really good. And he taught these singing schools around and actually had choirs and stuff. And sometimes now I grieve over that because I could have learned so much from them, and I just didn't.
You kind of rebel against that whole thing. You want to be your own man, and that was it. Or
absolutely, I want to play rock and roll.
Yeah,
and I learned on my own terms, and I didn't need nobody telling me this and that. I was just I hate to say it, but I just was. A lot of kids, they say, "Oh, well, I grew up singing in church and doing." Well, I didn't. I did not do that. I was too shy for that, for one thing. And if anybody ever backed into the music business, it was me. I didn't even move here till I was 36 years old. It's kind of a time of life most people are not changing careers, And I moved here, and I didn't realize I could write songs until I was 25, 26 years old. I never really occurred to me. And when I come home from the Navy, I was going to school at Moorhead, and I kind of got in I helped start this little band, this little rock and roll band. And I really thought I'd like to be in the music business, but to be honest with you, I wasn't good enough. My left hand's crippled, and it kind of always stunted and it was broken when I was a kid and not set right, so my hand won't turn over. And I imagine there's probably nerve damage and stuff. Who knows? So it's always made me play awkwardly. And, I'd really like to grumble about that, but the thing of it is, you see these cats like Jeff Healey and some of these Roy Hoffman and these guys that can absolutely play the frets off of them. And Roy can't even see and lays a guitar down and plays it like a keyboard and can play the frets off of it, So maybe I just didn't quite have the God thing for that. But, once I figured out I could, for some reason, I think I started trying to write songs because I kind of missed that band, you know, when it was gone. When everybody graduated, the band broke up when I was going to college. And I missed that. And I started fooling around trying to play music and trying to write songs, I mean, rather. And one day it just occurred to me, I wrote some kind of song. I don't even remember what it was now, but, you know, it occurred to me that for some reason I made that work out, you know, like when I looked at it and read it from the top to bottom, I thought, well, wow, that works out some way, you know. So I had no clue about how to, the mechanics of it or what that all meant or anything, you know. And then sometime that winter after I graduated from school, I wrote Highway 40 Blues, you know. I didn't know anything about it then. That was God's way of getting me out of the job I was in, I think. You know, I was trying to be a CPA and I really hated that work. I wasn't going to be good at it. I was just trying to stay around up there where I was from, you know, and not have to teach school or go to the coal mines.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your friendship with Ricky Skaggs, who I guess was the one who sang that song and made it a big hit, right? That was your first big songwriting hit, Highway 40
Yeah,
Blues.
yeah, still the biggest song of my career. And I didn't know anything about writing songs. Ricky was a prodigy. I've known him all of his life. I'm a little older than him. He his mom and dad lived a mile from my mom and dad. So we saw them, you know, just every day or two. And Ricky's dad would Ricky's dad had bought him a mandolin, and I don't know, he showed him 3 or 4 chords on it. Ricky's dad was a pipe fitter. He worked away from home. And when he came in, Ricky was playing the doggone thing. You know, he was gone a week or two, and when he came back, Ricky was playing the thing. So it was like a sign to him, I guess, that, wow, this fellow's really got some sort of anointing or something on him, you know, and he did, man, all through his childhood. I mean, there would be anybody that was anybody came there to play with Ricky because they just couldn't believe a kid that size could do those things, you know. And it was pretty evident really early on, too, that he was going to be a great singer, too. I mean, he just had a natural affinity for parts and he just had it. I call it a God thing. Maybe it's something else, but that's what I call it. I mean, I knew a lot of other musicians. I didn't know none like that. I mean, even and Keith Whitley I met him when I was about 17. And I mean, he was kind of the same way. You know, he was just, they were the best around. And that really kind of scared me away from the music business other than just sitting around. I never considered trying to make a living out of it because those guys were so good. I knew I was not in that league, and I didn't try to be. I didn't think anything about it, you know. It was just the way of the world. And I mean, I could always sing and stuff, so I wasn't. I mean, if I needed a job, I could go get a job playing and singing. But you know, I was interested early on in just trying to make a living, like I said, and stay up in there in East Kentucky. But I really wanted to be in the music business all the time. I just didn't realize I had the ability to be in it. I just didn't know it at the time. You know, I did not. So
Yeah. I've heard it said, talked about that if you write a country song today that goes to #1, it's a big hit, you can make a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even more. Without prying into your life, do you remember how much you made for Highway 40 Blues back in the early 80s?
well, I don't exactly, but I mean, it would have been, um, you know, it would have been beyond $100,000. I do know that. And I mean, we're talking about 1983. So, 1983. So if you figure all these years later, you know, it still pays me money quarterly. and has ever since it was written.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a fortune, but it's like I told my daughter: if you go to the mailbox and you find $20, you'll be glad to find it. You just will.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's been really good to me. Of course, I did have other hits and things, and thank God. But first year or two was pretty scary. When I left Lexington, Kentucky, I was making $400 a week playing. Of course, I had to play every night of the week, but that was pretty good money in 1984. And I came here for $200 a week. That's what they advanced me. Of course, I had already made the money, so they couldn't lose. The money was already made on the back of Highway 40 Blues. They were just doling it out to me, $200 a week at a time. I didn't have enough sense to know that I'd already made the money. Back in those days, I didn't know how the music business worked.
You came to town to write songs, and they were like a paid job weekly. That was your salary, kind of.
Yeah, that was, like I say, it was a draw. So it's against future wages. But I didn't understand how any of that worked. I just knew I wanted to be in the music business, and Ricky had asked me in '84 if I wanted to come down here and work for them, and I was like, boy, do I? I really do. And I didn't have any kids or anything at the time, so it was it was not that big of a deal for me to move. I hated to leave all my music things in Lexington, but the simple fact was I was already, like I said, I was already 35, 36 years old. And those are short life things, they want young guys to get out and play in these clubs that you get old and they get somebody in your place. So, and plus what happened to the business after I left there was, it almost went away because they cracked down on the liquor laws and everything. Which they should have done. And it was harder and harder and harder for musicians to make a living. So now they work for whatever they can get.
Yeah. So that system of advancing you a draw as a songwriter based on future earnings, does that still work sometimes in Nashville, or is that totally gone now?
Well, I hear that for a long time they were doing it this way. They were doing this, they called it a 360 deal. You got $1,800 for 18 months, and you had to produce so many songs. I can't remember exactly what the number was. Now I hear if you can get one of those deals, you better take it. I don't know. It wouldn't be fair for me to tell you I know, because the last time I worked on Music Row was 2007. Now, I have to do things there from time to time, but as far as going down there and doing every day like I did for 25 years, I don't. When the music changed, and that was about late 90s there, when the music changed, I didn't change with it. Maybe I could have, maybe I could have learned, because honestly, there was nothing to the lyric. But, it didn't move me like the songs in the 80s and the early 90s did. Those songs, if you go back and listen to that stuff, it was on the radio at that time. There was big competition for songs. Songs were good. Guys that's where I come from. Songs having a lyric that meant something, and, that were put together good. Then we got into this thing of people were having hit songs that didn't sound like they worked on the songs. They were just kind of loops and these things. And I thought, well, I would do that. I'd like to have the money from one of those hits. if I knew somebody would actually do that and make one out of it. But what I don't want to do is sit and write a bunch of that drivel and then find out I can't get it on anybody's record anyway. I mean, I've got a lot of songs that I wish I could get my name off of. I sure don't want 100 more of those, you know, because there's a learning curve to this, and I had to learn just like everybody else did.
Yeah. So you famously co-wrote the song "Murder on Music Row." That's your phrase. Was that written as kind of a joke, or were you pretty serious about what was happening down there?
We were serious. We couldn't. Our livelihood was going out the door.
Yeah.
Couldn't make, you know, from the time I moved here up until that time. So 15 years worth. I mean, it was competitive. It was hard, but you know, if you had a good song, it's going to find its way someplace. So we had songs on. I mean, I didn't have a lot of big hit songs. I only had a handful, but my goodness, we were on so many records, you know. People were really selling records then, as you probably well know. And if you got on some of these big acts, I mean, it was like having a single. They sold so many records that, so, you know, while I may have not had 24 number one records in the country world, I was on 60 or 70 million CDs, you know, and it paid well. You know, I was on 2 of the first 3 Garth CDs, and his wife, Trisha Yearwood, and John Michael Montgomery, and Shenandoah, just a bunch of those acts, you know. Anybody that was anybody nearly cut songs of ours in those times. And that was going away by the late 90s. Part of it was the youth wave. I mean, they were going to have their own. But even then, half the songs were good. We just didn't know how we were going to deal. We could see the market closing, see the whole thing closing down, you know. So we wrote. My old best friend in the music business, Larry Shell, gave me that song title, and you know, I'd been off the road a while, and I decided to go make another bluegrass album. I guess this was 1999. And he called me here one day. Me and him, I was leasing an office from him. And I was kind of in recording mode, you know. I hadn't been writing for a week or so. I'd been piecing what went on this album together, and first one thing and another, because I was thinking, geez, I may need to get back on the road here and try to make some money, because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be in this game down here. So he gave me that song title. Me and him wrote that song in a couple of hours, 2 or 3 days later. And it was not planned to be on that album, but after the song was written, I got to thinking about bluegrass fans, which that's not a bluegrass song, but bluegrass fans are old country fans. So I guessed right. I thought about what the artwork might look like on the album cover, and there was a lot of positives for including it on the album. And then, of course, I did include it on the album, and it was just a runaway. It was a runaway smash. I mean, every disc jockey in this world called here, and People Magazine and Us Mag, all these places I'd never even heard of did things. You can't buy that kind of publicity. And still, to this day, every time there's an award show, people will post George and Alan's recording of that, their performance of it on the CMA show. You know, they've all got comments. Here's what happened. These guys told you this 25 years ago. It's kind of funny in a way, but it's cool. You know, it's really cool.
Did you ever consider writing a current follow-up to that song? Or, I mean, I'm assuming you think that things haven't really improved much in terms of songwriting quality. As you say, there's some good songs. There are a lot of songs.
I think it's possibly just as appropriate, if not more appropriate now. And, country music is trying its best to make a little comeback, but I don't know. I don't know if it has the wheels to do that or not. Zach Top, as a kid, I kind of loosely know here, and Jake Worthington. There's a couple of more. I hear their name bannered about, and I know Zach he's parlayed his career into a pretty good thing. And he did it without benefit of some record labels' help over here. He's got some help now, I guess. But by and large, that happened for Chris Stapleton too, and some of these other boys. They didn't really want them. They didn't think they looked the part. They didn't look Hollywood enough. That's what they was looking for. Somebody that had a rear end that looked good, and a pair of Levi's, and right kind of cowboy hat, and Coca-Cola drugstore cowboy, we call him. So
I have to say, someone like Chris Stapleton, who really has not changed his appearance or his style since he became a country star, you have to admire that, because most of the country stars, they have baseball caps on backwards and they hold a guitar, but they're, like you say, they're drugstore cowboys. I don't know. It's not my kind of music either, but.
No, Chris would have been okay if he hadn't have been an artist, because he had already written 5 or 6 huge songs for other people, but we all thought he was great. Anytime the guy opened his mouth, you could tell what he was.
Yeah.
How great he was, Finally he got through there, But these record labels, they're all about it now. They're always all about it after, they want the credit for it. Mostly they want the money.
Yeah. So back in the 80s, before country music was murdered, was the process for, you would write a song, would you demo it for an artist, or would they come to you? How did that process work back then? The people that just demoed songs for songwriters and put them around to different labels?
I had great publishers. When I went to work, Ricky had partnered with the Welk Music Group, which was Lawrence Welk's company. And they had a country music division in Nashville, and they had all these great songwriters that worked for them. Jim Rushing and Bob McDill and Dickie Lee and Lionel Delmore, Roy Burke. It was a great place for them. Even though I was in my late 30s by then, I might as well have been 18. I was a kid. I didn't know. It was a great environment, because you couldn't pass anybody's office and not hear a great song coming out of there. It made me think, geez, what am I going to do here? But, you either had to get better or go back home. I just happened to have a #1 record on a song I'm really proud of, but that's basically because I knew the guy, and he was able to make he had recorded that song on me in 1980. Ricky was actually trying to get me a record deal. So he got so busy with his own thing, he had to let that go. But the songs that we recorded then, he wound up doing about half of them over his career. And I'm going to put that stuff out this year. I've had those multi-tracks all these years. So I'm going to put them things out. It's the very first recording of Highway 40 Blues, the very first, ever. It's the very first one of Don't Stop Gypsy, Hero of the Creek, 2 Highways. It's the very first recordings of those things that we actually did in Lexington before he moved here. And so I tell everybody, because it's true, when Ricky cut Highway 40 Blues, well, he already had the pattern for it, because we had cut it exactly that way in Lexington.
Gotcha.
So here's what happened. We would write songs, mostly co-write songs, because you get more done. You get less money, but you get more done. you get 4 or 5 songs you like, 5 or 6 songs you like. Most of the guys would have to run them by the big guy. They pretty much let me do what I wanted to do. So when I had 4 or 5 songs I thought would make a session, and I called somebody and booked the players. Mm. You could get anybody you wanted. In those days you could get the guys. I mean, it wasn't unusual for us to have Buddy Emmons or some guys of that ilk sitting around in there. Brent Mason was on a lot of demos of mine in those days, and Steve Turner. And they popped. I mean, the bands were always great. We'd go cut these songs, and they would take them around town and see who. People ask us a lot too. They ask the songwriters a lot too. Hey, man, I'm getting ready to record. And in those days, we knew everybody in the business. Now I hardly know anybody, but in those days, I mean, in the country music business, we practically knew everybody that was working. So sometimes you get the opportunity to just play it for the artist, which I would much prefer. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have to go through an A&R person at the record label, and you're bound by their decision. You're still a couple of people away from getting it to the artist, if you will.
So would the song potentially get changed a bit from how you wrote it by the time the artist actually heard it, or were they pretty true to the songwriter's intent?
In most cases, they were true to it. I've had people change things. One of my biggest hits, they changed 2 or 3 lines in for Diamond Rio. Mama, Don't Forget to Pray for Me. That was about 93, I think. I mean, they called me and told me they thought it was more appropriate for the band. Okay, well, I told Tim, hey, go ahead. Don't forget where to send the check. But I mean, in my opinion, did that make the song any better? No, it didn't. They were a new band, and the lyric that was written was appropriate for them. But if it made them feel better, whatever. And I have had little nuance changes. The hardest thing I think that I noticed people changing were melodies. Either they couldn't sing what you had on the demo, or they thought it was wrong some way. And, a lot of times songwriters sit and spend a lot of time on vowels and syllables and things, and making sure they sing over these melodies and stuff. And for whatever reason, some people can't do that. They don't understand that you spent all that time on it. They think they know better than you do. Well, maybe they do. I don't know. Those kind of people that change this stuff up a lot, you never have hits on them because somebody else figured out, oh, well, that ain't all that good, is it? It's just the way it is.
I was talking to John Weisberger on the podcast a while back about songwriting, and he said that when he co-writes, he's not usually the idea guy. He's the guy that takes the idea and makes it into a kind of, makes it song-like. I guess more of an editor type of approach to songwriting, rather than somebody that has a great lyric or a great lick or something. So he was the guy who would take that lyric and say, well, let's do this. And is that, do you consider yourself a lyric guy, a melody guy, or just kind of work with whoever you're writing with?
Well, I consider myself both. I mean, just the fact that you're co-writing, you are saying to somebody, okay, I trust you with this. Or he's saying to you after I trust you with this. So you got to have some difference for what somebody else may think. If I think I'm right about something, I'll fight for it until I'm proven wrong. I'm not a huge idea person, I don't think, because I've got friends that write still do. They write 100 songs a year. I've never done that. And I'm kind of jealous of my ideas because I want to look them over and make sure I can't do something with it. And I mean, co-writing to me, I've got songs here that I co-wrote with people that I know I wrote all the songs, all everything that's on it. But here's the way I approach that. If I hadn't had them, I wouldn't have got the song. Some kind of old idea I had laying around here for a long time. Well, I wouldn't have got it if I hadn't have got together with so and so and we hadn't got started talking about it. Wouldn't have happened. So I don't pay any attention to that. I mean, and I've had days where I'm just brain dead that I'm sure other people walk away from the thing thinking, dang, I wrote 80% of that or something, you know. I never try to let that thinking get in my head, because if you do, it's co-writing. It's the way it is. You know, I've had wonderful ones where, you know, a guy would say one line and somebody else would say the one after it, and it just went back and forth that way until it was done. They're not all that way. Mm-hmm. It's a mystery. You never know what's going to turn out. I like working with people that I've previously worked with, that I understand their mannerisms and what they're trying to get at. You know, and I can see, you know, I mean, John, that's probably how he views his. But that's okay. He's got his name on some doggone good songs. So, you know, whatever it took for them to get the song is what I'm trying to say, you know.
Do you keep a little book of idea, like a notebook of like phrases, ideas, song titles that you just
Yeah, I used to have a bunch of things written down, some old ledger-like books that I wrote in all the time. Mm-hmm. And I would still refer to them, see if there's things in there that I didn't write. But mostly now they're in this computer, you know, and in my cell phone. Your cell phone's the most ideas I ever get for songs are on the road. They're driving. Mm. You know, a lot of times I'm writing by myself, and it's just a good fertile time for that, you know. And now with cell phones, instead of trying to have to run people off the road looking for a piece of paper, I could pick the phone up and go to record in this little app I've got. Yeah, it may sound crazy when I get home, but at the time it made sense to me, I guess, you know. So I put it in there. I don't try to stifle my whatever that was.
I've heard other people say on this podcast who write songs a lot that when they're driving is usually when they have their best ideas too. I guess because you're away from home and you're free from all the mundane stuff, and you're just looking around and your brain is cycling through things and something just comes up.
Yeah, and I'm always looking around, you know, like church signs are some of the greatest song ideas in the world. You know, I've written 2 or 3 songs off things I saw on church signs. Mm. Anything, billboards, you never know. I mean, you never know where you might find it. You just got to have your mind. And it's the same way watching TV. You know, I'm always subconsciously, I think, listening for what somebody might say that might make a line in a song title. Who knows, you know? I've written several songs that way too. You know, libraries used to be bookstores, my favorite. You can go in bookstores and look through books, spend 2 or 3 hours in there, you know. If you don't find a song idea, you ain't looking very hard. That place ain't just to drink coffee. You know, you got to go in there and look around and see what you can come up with, because there's all kinds of wonderful ideas in there. It's just finding them.
Yeah. I was watching a podcast interview with John Fogerty of Creedence Clearwater, and he said, I used to come up with these riffs on the guitar, and I didn't know anything what they were. I just came up with a riff. He came up with this riff that turned out to be Proud Mary. He said, I don't know what to do with this. And he looked in his little book of ideas, and the first thing in there was Proud Mary. He goes, that's a good title, but what's Proud Mary? And then he looked down the bottom, and somebody had written Steamboat. He said, and there the whole song just came right to him in an hour. You know, he just, whatever those words were, they just kicked off an image in his head. And
Yeah, it's you just don't know where that's, you just don't know, you know.
Yeah.
I had the little melody for Highway 40 Blues for a week or 10 days. And I lived on Kentucky State Route 40, you know, and I was trying to be a CPA. I was working for a local firm there. And, you know, I was just I knew I'd kind of made the wrong choice before I graduated from college, because I thought, man, I'm going to have to do this for 40 years. I don't know how I'm going to. But I was trying to stay around up there close to where I was from, and I didn't want to be a school teacher, like I said, or go to the mines. But I'm up there. I'd sold all my music things, but I had one Martin guitar that I kept. By the winter, I graduated college on July 31st, 1975. By that winter, I'd bought all that stuff back. I went and borrowed money and bought all that back, and started rehearsing with these guys over in Breathitt County, Kentucky. So coming home from one of them rehearsals, we'd been talking about trying to find some things we could record. When I got ready to turn on that little road that I lived off, which was right off of Highway 40, my headlight shined on that road sign, and the whole first part of that just kind of fell out on me. I was afraid to drive 3 miles down the road. I pulled over right there and wrote the first verse of that down.
You were afraid you'd forget it?
I was afraid I'd forget it before I got home.
Wow.
And so I wrote it down, and when I came in, I kind of looked at it, and I went on to bed. And the next day when I got up, I wrote the other two verses. But I had that song from the winter of 1975 until I think I told Ricky I had some songs, about 77 maybe. So I'd had it easily 2 years. And I didn't know what to do with them. I'd fool around and had written a few songs by then, you know. I kept fooling around with these guys trying to play music. And I'd written 5 or 6 songs. And Ricky told me, he said, next time you're in Lexington, come by the house, you know, we'll make a copyright tape. And I mean, that's kind of how it went for me, you know. I mean, I don't know what else I can tell you, but
Yeah.
just telling about the Proud Mary tale, the whole Highway 40 blues thing happened just that way. I mean, I wrote that. I didn't pick a guitar up and try to play it until it was all written. I already knew how it went. I didn't have to.
Mm.
And sure enough, when we tried to play it, that's exactly how it went. You know, and so I do understand that Proud Mary tale. And I've had that happen a few other times in life where I've kind of, those are God things, I think. They fall out on you really quick. And on Music Row, Larry and I wrote in about 2 hours, you know. We just, once we got together, it was just back and forth the whole way through it until it was done. And we just kind of looked at one another and like, what do we do now? Let's go get something to eat. You know, it was, I mean, I don't think that I really thought anybody would record it. I knew pretty soon in 2 or 3 days that I was going to record it, because I got to thinking, man, that's just too, I'll get a lot of notoriety for it, even if people, you know, even if it's not some kind of hit. Somebody will find this on a record and they'll think, oh man, look at this. This is a novel. So the opposite happened, you know. I mean, it wasn't out a week until people were calling here trying to buy records, you know. I got some early lessons in the record business that I was not prepared for. You know, I'd already been here a long time by the time that came around, but I was not working in that end of the business. So I got some scary early lessons, and it cost me money, no question in my mind, you know.
Was there pushback from the industry about this record, that you're really like telling them they were kind of full of BS, and was that a factor in anything in terms of your life or your writing or?
Well,
Pressure?
I had 2 or 3 guys music people tell me, you'll never work in this town again.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, maybe not, but I don't see how I'm gonna make a living writing songs anymore. Not in this capacity, because the songs I wrote, I haven't, and this is, I'm not bragging or complaining. I have a certain style of songwriting that I think most people can identify, and that was just not in favor. And that happens to everybody, not just me. But the genre was so far away from anything that I would have considered country, that I didn't know. I mean, and yeah, let me tell you this. They had every news media outlet in Nashville on Music Row filming segments for the newscast with record people executives, with the president of the CMA and all these people. Well, we don't agree. We think we're making great, all this stuff. Well, it's nothing. All this stuff is good for me. It ain't hurting me. Bill Anderson told me, he said, man, I don't know. He said, I don't know. He said, I don't know what you're going to do from this point on. And I said, well, I'm not doing anything now. What do you mean? What am I going to do? I'm not being able to. The kind of songs that I create are absolutely not going to work here now. I went out and had a lot of hits in the bluegrass world, which I guess that was what God intended me to do. I don't really know. I just took what was there and went for it. I simply did not want to do what I told you I didn't. I would have done it if somebody would have guaranteed me that I'd make money on it. I didn't want to sit down. I felt like there were so many songs that were all the same to me. Have you saw that little mashup the guy did on the internet? It's been 2 or 3 years back where he had 7 songs, I think. And they played a little bit of them. They were all big #1 records, and you couldn't tell which one was which. They were all the same. We hated that. We hated sameness. We tried to do something different all the time,
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we were talking a while ago about Garth Brooks, who was maybe the biggest, I don't know what you call it, personality or changer in country music in the 90s. I mean, some people say, well, I've heard people say he ruined country music. He made it into rock and roll and a big spectacle. And others say, well, he saved country music. So I don't know. But I know one of the songs he did that you co-wrote, Against the Grain, I think was one of my favorite songs of his, one of the great songs ever written. I just feel like that it's such a great driving piece of music, but the lyrics are so clever and profound. Do you remember how that song came about? Is that song anything about your life against the grain? Like you see yourself in there?
Well, we felt that way at the time. I wrote that song with Carl Jackson and Bruce Boughton. Carl, Bruce, myself, and Glenn Duncan had a record deal on Capitol. And this is about the time Garth's right in here, And I tell everybody they kept the record and released us. So, but we were trying to write songs for that. I had this Against the Grain idea. And we went up there and worked on it. Bruce was there the first day, so we included him on it. But basically, yeah, we were trying to do what we wanted to do, which was against the industry even then. That band, as you might guess, was real harmony oriented, was real dedicated to playing their own tracks and playing our own songs, the songs we wanted to do. And Capitol Records had given us a small budget to do that, to do 4 songs, I think it was, to see what we could come up with, to see if it was worth going on down the road with. Of course, we had internal problems in the little group, and it blew apart before anything further could develop, and which was probably a good thing. We were all getting too old to be in a band. Bands with 100% democracy, I'm not sure how that works. You know, I'm in awe of people that can pull it off, but I'm not sure how that works. I think at the end of the day, somebody has to say, "No, here's what I'm going to do," and I think that's what happened to that band. But so yeah, it was kind of that, and that band was over. And this shows how much I know. I'd run into Garth over the publishing company one day. His manager was one of the first guys I knew in town, Bob Doyle. Good guy. He was a writer rep at ASCAP when I came to town. Mm-hmm. And so Bob brings Garth and over to my office and introduces him to me. I don't know, 86 maybe. So they had asked me for songs, and I had played them. I had made them a little tape that had that first thing that he recorded about. That's a great song that me and Ronnie Scaife wrote. It was called Alabama Clay. Mm-hmm. It's on the very first Garth album. So he kind of knew who I was and stuff. And somebody, I think maybe Jerry Kennedy's boy, Brian, took the demo of Against the Grain to, actually it was Harley Allen's soon-to-be wife. Debbie was working over there for Allen Reynolds. Mm-hmm. He took that demo over there to her, and Garth just loved it, I guess. So he had me and Carl on the record, and Bruce. I mean, he was all about it, and it was going to be a single. You know, he had told the whole Fanfare crowd that it was their new single when they performed it at Fanfare. And then later on, he told me that the record label said, you know, he had just had that the Thunder Rolls record, which was very controversial. Mm-hmm. And he told me that the record label told him, "Man, you can't follow up controversy with controversy. You just got to do something else." So it killed it. But like I told you earlier, it was still on a record that probably sold 20 million now. I don't know the latest numbers, but I mean, it continues to sell. So
how different was the demo that got presented to Garth Brooks did it have that same drive and kind of like real push?
It did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
The demo that we actually did, see Vince Gill come and play guitar on it, and I can't remember exactly who all the players were. Stuart Duncan, I think, played fiddle, and Steve Turner played drums. I just can't remember. Matt Rollins or Gary Smith, one played piano. So yeah, it was a whole lot the same. Mm-hmm. A whole lot the same.
Yeah.
That's the reason I think when he was in the studio, you know, he had asked Bruce if he knew who sung the back vocals on the demo, and he said, "Well, it's probably them guys." And it was me and Carl. So he had called us to come and do the back vocals, which was a big thing for me. Wasn't that big deal for Carl. He sings on a lot of stuff, but I didn't. I was tickled to death to be on it, you know.
I wonder if
let me say this to you.
Yeah.
I know Garth, and I know people say this. I mean, I know people say that, you know, he did this to country music, whatever. If you listen to Garth's first 3 albums, I believe you'll find a lot of country music. Mm-hmm. I really do. I know George Strait was his idol. Mm-hmm. And he was struggling to try to get away from that, you know. I really feel like, you know, now I wasn't totally unaware of what he was doing after the third album, but I was more and more removed from it all the time, so I wasn't as familiar with it. And now that first three albums had a lot of country music on it and some absolutely great songs.
Yeah. And I will say that all the songs I know of Garth Brooks that he sang always had great lyrics. Whether
Yeah.
you like the message or the rock aspect of it, they were always great lyrics in his songs, I thought. I mean, they all had a really strong message and point and story, whatever it was.
Well, he was a real
Wouldn't
talented
forget.
guy. I mean, at his age, I mean, he couldn't keep from being just like for me. I mean, obviously, I was influenced by Hank Williams and Farron Young or whoever, and Carter Stanley and Lester Flatt and Bill Monroe. But also, in my teens, I was influenced by people like the Beatles and Jackson Browne and James Taylor and stuff. There's no question about it. I don't.
Yeah.
When all those genres cross, they make another thing. Just like these kids now have a lot of rap music in their, it's everywhere. You can't escape it. Put yourself in their world.
I know.
You cannot escape it. It's on everything. You know, the same year I made, I'll just give you this example of things. The same year I made Murder on Music Row, when I was telling you I got all the record business knowledge that I didn't have before that, I finally made a deal with this distributor in Memphis, Selecto Hits. You had to sell to them to be able to sell out. So I go over there and they're giving me a tour of this place that, what's his name? Memphis guy started all the Sun Records.
You mean Phillips? Sam Phillips?
Sam Phillips' family still own this thing. Okay. They're taking me around. They're showing me this plant where they got these tractor trailers backed up. They're loading CDs. They take me around to where my place is, and there's a little cubby hole about yay big. It's got a couple thousand of my records in it. And I see them loading these pallets of CDs in these trucks. And I said to this girl, I said, what is that there, if you don't mind me asking? She said, oh, it's this rap guy. She said, man, we can't keep that in here. It's surrounding everything of mine that's sitting in a little shelf about this big. I mean, of course they're going to sell it. Of course they are. It don't do anything for me, but I guess if you're, and that's been 25 years ago now. So think about how many of them records they've moved in 25 years. And I'm telling you, they were literally loading tractor trailers with them to farm out. And that's a small independent one. Can you imagine what a big distributing plant would be? So these kids, while I don't like it, I can still see, I don't know how they're keeping from having it in there because it's around them every minute of every day. Some Music Row executive just said, yeah, that's country.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm 72. It's not my music either, but you're right. I mean, I have three daughters. The youngest one's 18. So I know this music is everywhere. And, you know, I'm from a different generation. Although I grew up listening to, in my teens, Motown music. I grew up in the Beatles too, but I listened to Motown all through my teens. You know,
I love
it was my music, you know, so
I feel like our generation. I feel this way. I tell people in interviews or anybody that wants to talk to me all the time. It will never be equaled. All the first generation bluegrass guys were alive. All the first generation, except old Hank, was alive. Country guy. I met a lot of them, met a lot of those artists, met a lot of those songwriters. All that great Motown music was still around. the Beatles had just come around.
Mm.
And all that great Southern rock and stuff that I just dearly love was yet to come.
But
Jackson Browne hadn't been thought of. He's my age. James Taylor hadn't. We had the best. They're never going to equal that music, I don't think.
mm-hmm.
That's the reason it keeps being recycled all the time. You hear it all the time, and in all genres. And Bluegrass is really getting that way now. I mean, they're putting things in there. They're looking for songs, buddy. They're looking for really great songs. And I think they are being created somewhere, but they're harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
So songwriters, when it gets right down to it, they got to make money or they won't have a job. Your job is to make money for the publisher. That's your whole job. I was so worried about it when I moved here that I told Dean Carey, one of the finest publishers ever. I told him I thought I could change and do the things that they were doing for the money, and he encouraged me not to do that. He said, "No, don't do that." He said, "Do what you do, and when it comes around, and it'll come around, I'll make money for you."
Mm-hmm.
I took him at his word, and it came true. He did make money for me, and I made money for them. It's just, I don't know how it works now. I wish I had something to tell you better. I don't know what you get paid. I'm sure it's good. I don't know how they count these streams. I can tell you a little something. Murder on Music Row and Highway 40 Blues, for that matter, and a couple of other things of mine, still have over 1 million streams a quarter. Okay, so that's one of them songs is 25 years old, the other one is 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Every quarter, they still have over 1 million streams. I get a couple of $300 in on them. Where's the rest of all that money? Where's that go? Who's making that money? Did you know at one time at BMI, they gave an award for when you passed 1 million airplays. They had this thing that they showed how many times over and over it would have to play continually to make 1 million airplays. It was a big deal. You went into a whole nother earning place. And now they send you $200 or $300 for 1 million. They say, well, it's a stream. It's not the same as a spin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why ain't it the same? If you're using it, why is it not the same?
Right. You mentioned BMI, and I was hesitant about going there about ASCAP and BMI because even as a small promoter up here in Connecticut, I still have to pay ASCAP fees for all these little artists to come through, and it's like, I don't know, people compare it to the mob. I'm not going to get involved in that discussion, but do you have any views on that whole scene, ASCAP, BMI, and do they contribute to the anything negative about the payouts to musicians, or you don't want to go there, or I'm not sure.
I don't care to go there, but I don't know what to. I mean, in the 80s, when I was just kind of first starting trying to come here, I was working at this club in Winchester, Kentucky. We were working 6 nights a week. And I guess these guys come in there from Chicago, maybe. Real nice dressed guys. They come in, don't cause no trouble. 2 or 3 weeks goes by, and the club owner calls me and he says, Cordle, he says, I know you're fooling around down there in Nashville and all that stuff all the time. He said, man, I got this thing over here. These guys from something called ASCAP want me to pay them, I think it was $1,000 a year or something like that. I said, I don't think I'm gonna pay him. And I said, well, Lee, it might be cheaper too. I said, I don't really know. I don't understand it exactly. I said, but so he tells him to F off, basically. So the next time they come back, they look like we do. You can't tell them from just a regular old guy. And they write every song that our band plays. They do that about twice. And then they come in and they want $2,500 now. So Lee says he's going to go to court and he knows this judge and he wants me to come and go with him. And I said, well, okay, but this is a federal thing. That judge? And he says, no, I know this Judge Joe, and he'll help me with this. And I said, well, okay, I'll come and go. I said, but man, I think they kind of got you here. I mean, if you are, he makes a deal with them for less, like 1,500 or something. But that money that you got a club or something, a restaurant or something?
I have a Bluegrass series for 18 years, so I have to, yeah.
That money supposedly goes into a pool and is farmed out to all songwriters. Now, you couldn't prove it by me because I don't know. I wouldn't know what line to look on to. Mm-hmm. Supposedly it is in there. I hear this. People grumbling about it all the time. People on the road will ask me, I'm having to pay this damn BMI or this daggone ASCAP. Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell people. I guess that's a law based on the size of your business and the music you're using. Everything revolves around music, I think is what they're saying. How would your business be if you didn't have any? I mean, that's their argument. I don't know. I've not been. I know the station inn where I work a lot put in a remote taping system so they can try to survive during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. BMI and ASCAP put that out of business. Mm-hmm. They wanted so much money for the music they were using that it was untenable. There was a possible way he could do it. So he lost the money for the equipment stuff he bought, which of course he should have consulted with them first. They might have made some kind of deal with him on the front end. But JT just didn't think about it. He didn't think about it. He was trying to do something to help musicians and help the business stay alive. And he just simply couldn't do it because he couldn't pay the fees to ASCAP, BMI, and say CSAC. They were all down his throat, over it. I mean, not down his throat. They just sent a thing and said, here's what you owe us if you're going to use it. He put this stuff on the internet. Here's the only part about that makes me mad. They put this stuff all on the internet, but one of my big songs still has over 1 million streams a quarter, and they send me a couple $100. Come on. You know what these companies are worth, Spotify and these guys? They're worth billions of dollars.
Yeah. Well, I kind of agree. I mean, if the money that you're paying to these, whatever you want to call them, I call them extortion rackets, but if it went to songwriters in a fair way, I mean, it shouldn't go to Beyonce and Justin Bieber and these people because they're already making billions of dollars. It should go to people. It should somehow support the music. And I'm not sure, as you are, that it actually does.
I don't know. I know how other things work in the music business. Yeah, if it's down between Hal David's catalog or mine, I know who's going to get the grease. If it's down between Beyonce's and Ralph Stanley II, who do you think's going to get the grease?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way of the world. You know that.
Well, I was going to ask you a question. I think you've already answered, which was, did you ever get any great advice about the music business? But you did mention this gentleman who said, write your own songs, be yourself, don't chase the money, and eventually, if you're good enough, it'll come to you. Would that be a good summation of advice about the music business?
I think so. One of the best pieces of music advice I ever got, I got from Bob McDill. I was down here trying to learn how to. I never co-written before, and I found out that I really liked it, but he'd stopped by my office one time down there. You know, I was just green as a gourd. I'd only been in town 2 or 3 times. I had this melody and I was just kind of bent over it. And he stops in my door and he says, a very encouraging thing. He said, I believe that's one of the most beautiful melodies I ever heard. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is Bob McDill. He's already had 30 number ones or something. I said, would you mind if I asked you something? He said, no, not at all. I said, is there anything you can tell me about this? Complete hillbilly. Anything you can tell me? You tell me how you had 30 number one. So it's kind of embarrassing now, but he says, yeah, there's something I can tell you. I'm thinking, oh my God, he's going to tell me how he did that. He says, you work hard and save your money. Well, I mean, and he turns on his heel and leaves, you know, and I'm thinking, geez, what was that? But later on, I found out exactly what that meant. Keep your head down and work and save every nickel they send you, because if you're on the mountaintop, I can guarantee you there's a long valley in front of it. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have to walk through that before you get back to the top of that thing again. And it happened time and time again to me. I mean, I would think, oh man, I'm out of here, you know, and something would pop. It was great advice for a young guy. It just at the moment, it didn't ring as true as it did a year or 2 later. But I never forgot it. I tell people that all the time. That and he probably wouldn't remember. He probably said, well, I didn't say that. It's exactly what he said, you know, so. But no, the Dean thing was a good piece of advice too. You got to be, what are you going to be? I mean, you are you. Embrace it. I mean, there's people that can be comedians. They can. I don't have any problem with that. That's whatever you're convicted to do, go ahead and do it, you know. And a lot of people I know did take the money. They got in. And I've already told you I would have taken it if I'd have thought somebody would have done it. I don't believe if I wrote 10 of them songs, I don't believe anybody would think I did it. You know, I thought about changing my name once. You know, you can do that. You can get an alias. You can go. I thought about that once to try to stay in the business. I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll go change my name. And I'll write these songs under that alias. And I'll record that at BMI. And that way I won't have to put my name on it. But, you know, I never did. It was just kind of a thought that came through my mind. And I know people used to do that. You know, people used to write under assumed names. And my old friend Lionel Delmore told me his dad was Elton Delmore, you know, the Delmore brothers. And he told me his dad told him that sometimes they did that because they got in bad deals and they couldn't get away from them and they couldn't get paid. So they'd make up another name.
Yeah. You've heard it even Flying Scruggs doing that. I've heard Flying Scruggs did that a few times on songs.
Well, they had them songs that was Certain and Stacy, which I'm sure you've heard the stories about them. Gladys Certain was Lester's wife's last name, and Louise Stacy was Earl's wife's last name. So I've heard that was songs that they had, I don't know, bought or found or whatever, and that's how they listed them. Now, I don't know that. I knew Earl Scruggs very well, and he never ever told me anything like that.
Yeah. Is there anyone in music history that you would have wanted to sit down and play some tunes with and didn't get a chance to play with? You said you knew Monroe pretty well, so he's not on the list. But anyone you would have really just loved to sit down and pick some tunes with?
Hank Williams. Merle Haggard. I got to Tom T. Hall, who was my total idol. I mean, if I had I mean, there's so many great songwriters. I mean, that's a hard thing for me, but those people I named to me were, I mean, I don't know. Tom had a thing that, even though I didn't know the character he was writing about, I knew them.
Mm.
He was from the same part of the world as me. I knew them. They just had in my where I live, they just had different names than Clayton Delaney and some of those others he came up with, you know, but they were the same character. So when I wanted to meet him so bad, you know, I got to meet him in I think 92 the first time. I met him once. I was in the elevator with him. That was in 74, but I wouldn't have said anything to him. I went to see his show like the night after that or something. And his dad was sick and was in the hospital when I was going to college at Moorhead. But even then, I knew he was the man for me because those characters and those songs were just, man, there were things he knew about, and he put that down and he sold it to the world. He sold it to the whole world, you know, and I love that. And but those other guys I told you, any one of them, you know, Mr. Monroe, of course, was just a vault of knowledge that you know, if he wrote a song, he would claim it, you know, like Uncle Pen or something like that. But if he didn't write it, like he used to say, me and him would do like Little Cabin Home on the Hill, and he said, "Do you know me and Lester Flatt owns that song?" Well, I don't know exactly what that means. What that means, but he didn't say me and Lester Flatt wrote it. He never did say that to me. And Lester may have wrote it. I don't know exactly, but that's what he would say, because you know, of all the other guys, I mean, I knew all the other guys, every one of them, of the first generation guys. Well, I didn't know Don Reno, but I knew all those boys. You know, but that's what he would say. He'd say, "Yeah, you know, me and Lester Flatt owns that song." So I don't know how many songs he owned as opposed to how many he wrote, but they had that thing about him, you know. And Earl Scruggs told me he bought Somehow Tonight. I believe that's an Arthur Q. Smith song. Do you know anything about Arthur Q?
I know the name. I don't know much about him.
He's a songwriter from Knoxville, and they claim he wrote Together Again and a bunch of them big songs, you know. And actually, Wayne Bledsoe, a journalist in Knoxville, told me one time, he said, "Man, if you come over here sometime, you got a day," he said, "I'll take you around to his family." He said, "Now, I don't know if he wrote these songs or not." He said, "But now they've got notebooks that's got these songs in them that would, for all the world, looks like he might have wrote them." So they say that he was an alcoholic, I guess. And he would come and bring songs to that midday merry-go-round that used to go on over there in Knoxville. He had live entertainment. That's where Dolly got her start. And he'd had live entertainment all the time. And they say he'd come around at that thing and sell songs. Some people say he sold for $50 or whatever. And there's, you know, Harlan Howard actually wrote a song about him. And because, I mean, it's well known enough on Music Row till I think everybody recognizes he may have wrote a lot of these songs, you know. So that we know from the canon I'm talking about, that, I mean, there's a handful of them that are just everyday things that we would know that they claim he wrote.
Yeah.
So but I mean, for me, you know, and I wish I'd have had more time with Tom T. Dixie told me one time, this is 5 or 6 years before she died, she said, "You know, you should come out here, you know, big, thick English broker. Larry, you should come out here and write with Tom." But, you know, to be honest with you, Chris, I had him in such a place I don't know what I thought. I thought, what if I have a dumb day out there? You know, I went out there and did some things back in 2007. I had made this record, and Tom did all this great PR stuff for me on video and stuff. I wouldn't take anything for it. He said all these nice things about me. And I'll tell you another good little story on him, because your listeners might want to hear it. After we got to be pretty good friends, you know, especially about 2001, something like that. I'd see him all the time, and every time I see him, I think, you know, I got that daggone little book out there called How I Write Songs that I bought in the 70s, and it was Tom T's little book, you know. So when Dan Hayes retired from being the director of the IBMA, they held a party for him down there on Music Row, you know. And I'm already out to my truck, and I think, you know what? Tom T and Dixie will be there. I'm going to run back in the house and see if I can't put my hands on that little book. So I go down there. I go down there, and I've got this book with me in the truck. And when I get to the thing, Tom T's holding court. He's got 6 or 7 people around him. And of course, he's holding them spellbound with one of them good tales he is. So I get right up to him, and I get cold feet. So I see Miss Dixie on my way back to the truck, and I said, Dixie, I know this ain't the place or the time. I said, but you know, I've got this book that I've had since the 70s. I said, do you think it would be in bad taste if I asked Tom to sign it? She said, Larry, you get that book and take that over there to him. So I went and got it. I walked back up there to him. This time he sees me. And he kind of motions me to come up there, you know. And I said, well, I shook hands with him. I said, well, I know it's not a good time to ask you about this. I said, but I've had this book I said, I wondered if you'd sign it. So he addresses the whole crowd that's standing in front of him. He says, you know, a while back, I hear this song, this Black Diamond String song, and I keep listening to it and listening to it and listening to it. And he says, this may sound self-serving or whatever, he says, but it's incredible to me. And it dawns on me, that son of a bitch has been reading my book. So I said, well, here you go. I said, here you go. You know, so he signs it for me, puts a great quote in there and signs it for me. You know, I wish I'd had more time to spend with him. And that's nobody's fault but mine. I loved him dearly. I really did. I think it was it hurt me to the bone when I found out he was gone, you know, but just life, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's a lot of people, really, if I could say, I mean, the ones I told you was probably the most apt. They wrote the most songs that I was taken by. But my word, there were so many people just on Music Row, you know. I never really sat with McDill. He didn't need a new guy like me. But I learned from him just the same. I learned, well, you know what they do? They come to work every day. They come to work every day. And that's what we did. We worked every day, just like you were going to a factory or something. It was our job. So many young writers have told me, well, I don't write songs like that. What do you mean you went every day and wrote songs? I said, well, that's what we did. You don't write something every day. You talk about something all day one day, and the next thing you know, you see that person again. There's something in the conversation that winds up being a song. You don't know. You go with the hope of writing a song, or as one great songwriter told me one time, well, you might not write a song every day, but how would you like to be at home and the song was in here and you weren't here? Mm-hmm. It made a lot of sense to me. You know, I started making my life like those people I saw that were successful, that came to work and were willing to work hard. That's hard sitting there when there's nothing will come. And you're beating your brains up and thinking, my God, this person must think I'm stupid. I mean, that's hard. And some songs, you know, you don't know it at the time. You don't know it until it's over and out of you, what it took out of you emotionally. And some of it's necessary. Some of it needs to be got out of you. You know, you don't even know it's aggravating you or whatever until it's out and on paper and done, and you look at it and you think, yeah, I needed that. I've gotten some of those too, you know. I love my career. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's had some scary moments, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, we never really got to your singing. Not much of your bluegrass career, but I mean, you covered so much interesting stuff. I think that's a good place to call the end of this chat, because I think you have a lot to say. We could probably do a whole other chat about more that you have to say. But this was just fascinating to me, and I think people who listen to this will really enjoy you and your perspective on everything. So,
well, I hope so. I mean, if you know, if you need to do it again sometime, just call me. I mean, I can always find a hole to do things. I didn't have the babies today, so they've not been draped all over. But I love that's the best part of my life now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank Larry Cordle for coming on and discussing so much of his life with us, and appreciate it. And maybe I'll talk to you again, but I do thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Chris. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna end right here, and I will send you the link to the podcast so you can listen if you're interested.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.